Good evening, and thank you for joining us here on a Friday edition of KC Sports Tonight. Here we are. It's May the 9th. Gabe, joined as always, well, not as always, but frequently by Gabe Swartz. Gabe, May 9th, I kind of can't believe we're already this far in the calendar.
Yeah, we're starting to really get into the – I mean, it feels like summer. I know that school is still in session. There's some graduations going on this weekend. College kids are, for the most part, done. High school, middle school, elementary school, they're winding down. I feel like it's perfect night for some Royals baseball and for some hot Royals baseball to continue.
It absolutely is. We got 4 great topics for you today. The Royals, they're the hottest team in baseball, sporting KC. They're back in action this weekend on the road. The KC Current return home, and NASCAR is back at Kansas Speedway, but we got to talk about the number one topic, the talk of the town. The Kansas City Royals are the hottest team in Major League Baseball. We're 40 games through. 40th game of the season tonight. The Royals are 23-16, 7 games above 500. Gabe, this is one of the best stretches they've been on in the last 38 years. The pitching really stepping up. I believe there's some absurd stat in the last 15 of the last 17 games they've allowed 3 runs or less. What's maybe been the biggest thing about this recent stretch of baseball that's really stood out to you?
Well, I think that even when we were trying to justify the failures a couple weeks ago, and when they were 8-14, and it felt frustrating, not because it felt frustrating in particular because every game felt winnable, and every game felt winnable because this rotation, even when this rotation does not have it, like you didn't necessarily get the greatest start out of Michael Lorenzen last Sunday. He gave up 4 home runs. I say he gave up 4 runs. He gave up 4 home runs. He gave up 4 solo home runs and only 4 runs total, or I think it was 5 runs total. Excuse me. But the point being, every single night, the Royals go out there, they put a starter on the mound, and it's someone who is giving them either a quality start or very close to it, and it keeps them in the game. So even when the offense is not putting up 10 runs on 17 hits like we saw yesterday, because that has certainly not been the case most nights, really the offense is just being asked the question every night of, can you get 2 or 3 timely hits to provide the support for the starter? And what we've seen over this stretch of the last 2 weeks, which I think is the most encouraging thing, is the pitching is even better when they get a little bit of early support. It feels like every time that the Royals have jumped ahead, they've been able to hold on to those leads, and they still are one of the best teams in terms of come from behind victories in the league. So I think it's been really encouraging, and the pitching, the consistency of the starting pitching is, to me, the biggest reason.
No, the pitching absolutely has been tremendous. I mean, Chris Bubich, this is a guy that was going in, who was kind of questioned going into the season if he was going to make it into the rotation. We saw last year when he came back, he was in the bullpen, and he's been the best starter they've had.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy, it's kind of unbelievable how he's pitching, and then you look at just the rotation as a whole. I think the ERA is the second in all of baseball for the Royals, not only with pitching and relievers, but specifically with the starters. Speaking of how well those starting pitchers have pitched this season, one thing that stood out to me, though, was listening to Bobby Witt Jr. speak after the game yesterday. He was saying there's a lot of people saying that maybe that the Royals are on a roll, that it might just be the team that they're playing because they just played the White Sox, who are very, very bad. But he said, no, this is Royals baseball, and this is how it's going to be. And to hear someone talk like this is how it's going to be, like with that conviction, with that confidence, this is a team that really believes in themselves right now. I mean, 15-2 in the last 17 games, their best stretch in 35 years. And I saw in their media notes for tonight's game, so should the Royals win, they'd be 16-2 in their last 18. They'd be their best stretch since 1978. So this is not something that Royals fans should take for granted. This stretch that we're seeing right now, this is some of the best baseball, or at least the most wins in a single stretch that Royals fans have seen in a very, very long time. So, Gabe, my question here maybe for you to kind of continue this conversation is should the Royals, should the pitching maybe regress to maybe league average, or maybe even right now they're number 2 in baseball. If they drop back to number 10 to 15, can this offense produce at a rate where the Royals can sustain a level of success and be a playoff team?
I don't think so if it regressed to that level, but I also don't know if that's like if you're
within
talking
the
about
realm of possibilities.
if you're going best case, worst case, what's the range of outcomes? I mean, your scenario of them dropping to like the 15th ERA in baseball, if that were to happen, I think that is like worst case scenario, and obviously knock on wood, that's I think a pretty optimistic viewpoint of what the Royals starting pitching is going to. But if you just look at, and this is to get kind of deeper into the numbers, 3 of the top 10 pitchers in the MLB this year in terms of WAR, so wins above replacement, it's a value-based metric. 3 of the top 10 starting pitchers in pitching WAR this season are members of the Kansas City Royals, and that is how good the rotation has been. And so I think it's extremely sustainable. I think that
we have Reagans, we have
Bubic, and I believe the third one is Waka.
Michael Waka, yeah, he has pitched tremendously this year. It's either him or Lugo.
Waka's
got to be up there too.
Waka has a 2-4 record, but if he had gotten, he's pitched into the 5th and 6th inning of multiple games that have been 0-0,
and he's had a lot of inherited runners score.
Yeah, and so I think if anything, you could argue Michael Waka's been a little unlucky, but along those lines, I think that the one thing that we have to see of whether it's sustainable or not is the production level that they're getting out of Maikel Garcia right now. It's extremely encouraging. His hard hit rate is way up. His walk rate is up. His strikeout rate is down. If that is sustainable, if that is something that continues throughout the summer, that is where you would buy stock in the Royals offense, staying at the level of being a team that is going to contend for the AL Central. And if anything, what we're going to have to start talking about is, do the Royals play in? I think they play in the best division in the AL. I think that is pretty clear based on the standings, and that, if anything, is going to be the biggest deterrent, is that they're going to have to beat up. If you talk about beating up on bad teams, they're going to have to beat up on the White Sox because the Twins are still solid. The Guardians are equal with them in the standings, and the Tigers are one of the 3 or 4 best teams in baseball as it currently stands.
Yeah, what's shocking to me is I was looking again at the standings just over the last couple days because the Royals have been playing so well. The Royals, they're 15-2, but they're still 2.5 games out of first place in the AL Central. The Tigers are playing so good, but with Maikel Garcia, I think we really need to start the conversation of, is this guy an all-star? Because I think if you look through the first 40 games of the season, I don't know if you can name that there are a whole lot of better players in Major League Baseball this year than Maikel Garcia, just with his ability at the plate, his ability on the base paths, and then also, playing third base, playing center field, playing second base. This guy is playing all over the field, and the Royals would not be here in this position without him. I think he's been a tremendous surprise. Also, I think a tremendous surprise that we maybe need to talk about a little bit, maybe as a role player contributor that no one saw coming, is Drew Waters. This guy, he comes in, he kind of reminds me of maybe a Mitch Meyer from like 10, 15 years ago, where it's not a guy that you maybe expected to be contributing majorly on the big league roster, but when they're in the game, they make plays. What do you think about that, Gabe?
Yeah, I think that if anything, the thing that has helped him the most is the amount of reps he's gotten. He wasn't comfortable last year. He wasn't comfortable the year prior in the limited sample that he got, and I would say that his best usage when he's coming off the bench, which he's not in the starting lineup tonight. So if you're going out to Kauffman, you're not going to see him unless he's pinch running, which I would say is where he's valuable. He's not a pinch hit super valuable because there's not a ton of pop, but JJ Picollo's talked about he's kind of learned to be valuable by just getting hits rather than looking for power, where he can hit for power in AAA, but he's not hitting for power in the MLB, and he's not hitting for power specifically at Kauffman Stadium, even though he does have 1 home run this year. He can provide one every once in a while, but it's not his game. And so we've seen last Sunday in Baltimore the 2-run single. We've seen a couple times on the homestand just shooting the ball to left field. I haven't seen the numbers of whether he's of righty versus lefty, but it feels like every time he's up there as a left-handed hitter that he is putting together quality at-bats. And that was the thing that Jonathan India was talking about yesterday in postgame as well, was just how much this Royals group over the last couple weeks has gotten back into providing tougher, more quality at-bats. And that's how they get out of the offensive slump from the start of the year.
No, it certainly looks like they're hunting their own pitches. There's a stat I had right here. The Royals in the last 17 games batting .291, so they really have been turning it on. But maybe the most important thing is they're going to play 81 games at home this year, maybe more in the playoffs. And the Royals are very, very good at Kauffman Stadium. They're 15-5 at home this year, a true home field advantage here in Major League Baseball. I think actually the best team with the best record at home is the Detroit Tigers. So the Royals, the AL Central, a lot going on there this year. Going to be very interesting to see what happens there the rest of the way. But coming up this weekend, we're going to move on to soccer. We have both teams in action this week. Sporting KC is on the road at the Portland Timbers. We're going to start with them. Gabe, Sporting KC, they're taking on Portland. Portland beat Sporting 4-2 in Kerry Zavagnan's second ever game as head coach of the club, but Sporting 3-2 under their new head coach. 5 games in, Gabe, I know it's a small sample size. Just what have you seen just looking at this team? How have they looked different to you? And then, just as a Kansas City and as someone that I assume maybe grew up kind of cheering for the team, does it feel like there's more life, more energy around this team than there was before?
Yeah, I mean, I can't necessarily say around the team because I haven't been out there.
I should say among the fan base.
Yeah, you were out there. I would say that the conversation from earlier this week that I discussed with Marlia was he's at least in the running. He's keeping his name in the conversation for continuing to have the job and dropping the interim title, which you can debate the merits of keeping interim head coaches around long term in any sport. But he has at least provided results through the first several weeks of his tenure in this role that you're not just dismissing it and just saying, all right, we're definitely guaranteed taking a look at an outside hire and going there no matter what. And that's because, they've turned things around. The vibe has changed a little bit, and the results are showing certainly much better than the start of the season. And so I think tomorrow night is another example of an opportunity. It's a road game, so we will see whether they can get a result. But I think that things are trending in the positive direction, and that's important because it was, frankly, extremely bleak at the start of the season.
Oh, I think that is a very good way to say it. It was extremely bleak. And then when the team won their first game under Zavagnin, when they beat St. Louis, one thing I actually said to a couple members of the media the next day at the Royals game was I was like, it was so good to see Sporting KC smile again. And some people in the media room, they kind of laughed at me like, Mark, these are professional athletes. Like, what are you talking about? But I was like, they looked so joyless. And so some people there obviously thought that was an interesting comment. Then on Tuesday, the reason I'm bringing this up, Tuesday at practice, we're out there shooting the practice, talking to the players. A member of Sporting KC's organization comes up and we start talking, and he was telling me that a big thing about Kerry Zavagnin and what he wants to do here at Sporting KC is bring back the joy to these players, because they were talking about like previously, like you'd see them like these guys look so sad, they look so down. It's so hard to play at your best athletic ability when you aren't feeling it. The member of the organization was telling me that in the last days of Peter Vermees at practice, you'd have the starting 11 go to one half of the pitch and you'd have everyone else go to the other half of the pitch, and it was a team divided. The organization guy was telling me that Kerry Zavagnin said we are not doing that anymore. And so a lot of what they do is setting up. It might sound like something that you would do at a high school or a college.
It sounds a little Ted Lasso-y.
It really does sound Ted Lasso-y, but he's putting these guys in groups so that they have to interact and they have to be with each other. I was out there at practice. Everyone's smiling. Everyone's laughing, and they're winning. They're 3-2 in 5 games under him. And one thing I thought was really interesting was they brought out midfielder Jacob Bartlett, who's one of the homegrown guys. He's been in this organization. I believe he's from Overland Park. So this is a Kansas City kid through and through. He knows the story of Sporting Kansas City. He's literally been in it because he's been in the academy and now he's on the team. But he said that St. Louis game was a huge turnaround specifically for him, because that showed him and the team that they could beat anyone in the league. And he said that made us think that we are one of the best teams in the MLS. So, Gabe, I guess hearing all that, have you maybe seen that from the team that there is a mindset shift, that this team now kind of believes that they can contend and win games?
I mean, I think they've shown it. I think that the results speak for themselves. And even when they didn't necessarily, we can laugh all we want about winning without taking a shot, but that at least shows that there is some fight and there's some will for a result, even when they're not playing well or executing incredibly. And yes, they're winning in different ways. So it's not just some massive gimmick, I guess you would say, where they're doing something odd and different, and now they're trying to win 4-3 or 5-4 in every match. They're doing different things, and they're back to being at least a watchable product in terms of something that you're tuning in and you're saying what's this going to look like?
Yeah, they're on the road this week, and next time they're at Children's Mercy Park, you guys should all go out there. It really, I mean, the team feels different. Everything feels different with this group, and it's been exciting to kind of see this turnaround. And just again, one thing I want to say before we get out of this, their co-owner Mike Illig, he was saying that this is Kerry's job to lose, and if Kerry keeps winning and the results keep coming, it looks like he could be the next man for Sporting Kansas City and just kind of have a smooth transition from the Peter Vermees era to now. But still, a lot of soccer left, a lot of season left. We're going to have to see what happens, but good luck to Sporting this week. And now moving on to women's professional soccer, the KC Current. This is something that we don't often say, but they are on a 2-match losing streak. They lost 2 matches on the road, but now they're returning home to the friendly confines of CPKC Stadium to take on Bay FC. The game is on national TV on Mother's Day. So, Gabe, something that's really kind of stood out to me about the Current just in their first couple of years as a franchise, and especially in the first couple of years of CPKC Stadium, is how often this team and this venue has kind of put the city of Kansas City on a national stage. So just kind of setting the soccer aside, what do you think the impact this team and that stadium in the first 2 years that it's been in Kansas City has had on this city? Because for me, I don't know if it could be a bigger home run.
Yeah, I think that the thing that stands out to me is that, yes, there's not nearly as many games, but like we talk about the Royals and we talk about the excitement that surrounds the team and the change in play from the last year, from 2023 to 2024, of going from worst record in franchise history to making the playoffs and being back in contention. And then this year, there's expectations, and now they're kind of delivering on it. The Current have had expectations throughout their history, at least in the recent history for sure. And going from playing it at Children's Mercy Park in KCK to now having their own stadium, you know what? Like, they are producing, at least in terms of a fan base and a turnout. And yes, there's fewer games to go to than baseball every night, but the fan base is at least maximizing the home field advantage in that regard. And that's what I think, in terms of talking about the Royals and talking about the Royals being so good at home, is like the Royals are doing that at home despite being 24th in attendance. And so I think that it's remarkable to me that Kansas City has not necessarily bought in on a winning Royals team in the same way that they've bought in on a winning Current team and definitely on a winning Chiefs team. And so seeing that, you can get into the whole discussions about downtown ballparks and where the ballpark is located, where the stadium is located. I think that the Riverside location is honestly incredible. It's just going to continue to get building up and everything. But it looks awesome on TV. It's an incredible environment, and they typically play really well at home, and that certainly helps things. And so you mentioned the 2-match losing streak, but I fully expect them to come home this weekend and treat it as a get-right game. So we'll see.
Yeah, we will see what happens. It's interesting that you bring up how the Current fills the stadium, because there are maybe literal roadblocks, or they were in the past, for fans getting there. The price of parking was really expensive. There were maybe 2,000 spots for a 10,000, 11,000 seat stadium, but still the fans came to watch the product and to be a part of that. Now, KC Current, they have 2 injuries to look out for this weekend. Timwa Chawinga, the reigning league MVP, she may miss the game, and Michelle Cooper, looks like she's going to be out for a couple more weeks dealing with an ankle injury. But those two losses, both on the road. Now they're returning home to CPKC Stadium, a great environment, as Gabe said. And that's actually, I want to talk about this earlier. When you watch the Current on the road versus watching them at home, it's kind of, I always like to look around at the other stadiums just to kind of see what the other teams have going on, because the Current have they have the premier facility in the league, and it's just. I'm just like looking at all these other teams. I'm like, boy, there's no one at these games.
Yeah,
or it's a smaller venue because it's not
quieter.
Like it is here.
Yeah, it's completely different.
So the KC Current, all right, we'll see if they get back to their winning ways, taking on Bay FC, national TV, Mother's Day, 11:50 a.m. I'm going to be out at that game, so we'll have some coverage of that on KC Sports Night on Sunday night, so be on the lookout for that. Last topic to talk about here today, NASCAR returns to Kansas Speedway for the Advent Healthcare 400. It's Kansas Speedway, Gabe, has kind of become one of the most unpredictable tracks in the entire NASCAR circuit. They've had 6 different race winners in the last 6 races. I was reading on the NASCAR website that say chaos comes standard at Kansas Speedway. I know you had a friend maybe that's pretty plugged into NASCAR.
Yep.
You asked him about NASCAR this week and asked him for maybe some favorites. What did he say?
I just said, let's hear it. Well, who's your pick? I want to sound smart. I'm not necessarily locked in on NASCAR every week. It's something where I'll turn it on if I see that there's some huge wreck. I'll turn it on if things are coming down to the wire or if it's an interesting track. And it certainly helps that Kansas Speedway is an interesting track. And last year it was an unprecedented race and the closest race in NASCAR history.
Yeah. 0.0001 seconds.
It was like, for my generation, it felt like the live remake of Cars.
Yeah.
With the photo finish at the end.
Lightning McQueen.
Exactly. And so I asked for a pick, and he was like, you're gonna if you want to go out on a limb and say a specific name, you're probably gonna end up looking dumb because it could be anybody, and it's going to be so close, and this is a track that they can race 3 wide, they can really amp up the energy, and I just think it's one of the best tracks in the sport, and that's proven to be the case in recent memory, and there's no reason to believe it would be any different this year.
Yeah, certainly. When you listen to the drivers talk, that's pretty much exactly what they say. They're like, this course, you don't know what's going to happen. They said the restarts are crazy. Everything about this race is crazy. I think I was reading the guy that's won he's been on pole position 3 years in a row, and he hasn't won any of the races. So it's like you start number one, and it doesn't really matter because of so much chaos that happens there. So very exciting weekend at Kansas Speedway. I will say, for some of you who have never been out to NASCAR, I really believe this is a sport that doesn't translate well to TV. I think this is a sport that you really need to be there. You need to watch it in 3 dimensions. You need to be in the environment. You need to hear it. You need to smell it, because when you go to racing, TV just does not do it justice. Like the feelings that you feel there, the sights, the sounds, like every single time. Gabe, have you been to a NASCAR race?
I believe I've been to a NASCAR race when I was very young and when I was living in the southern portion of the United States. I've never been to Kansas Speedway, despite the fact my dad has gone several times, and my dad has been on the infield several times.
We'll get your credential. How about that?
Yeah, you know what? I need to get out there at some point. But yeah, remarkably, I've never been inside of Kansas Speedway. Just watched it on TV.
Yeah, racing it's just such a different sport, because these are guys that it's just they have to push it to the limit for hours and hours and hours, and it's just every single week that they're out there, they're competing against the entire industry in NASCAR. So like, it's so hard for these guys to win because they're competing. Everyone's pouring in millions and millions of resources into these things, and there's the margins of error are just so small. And then especially in NASCAR, when they're bumping up against each other and they're literally driving a physical car, not paddle shifting like Formula One. It's unbelievable. NASCAR Truck Series is on Saturday. The actual race for the Cup Series is on Sunday. Then one final note to close here. The KC Mavericks, your KC Mavs, are in the Mountain Division Final tonight. They're up 3-0 against the Tahoe Night Monsters, so they can close that out. We're going to have an update to that coming up tonight at 10. But the Mavs guys, I got to say, there's plenty of room on the bandwagon. You got to get on. They're a great team, a great organization, and they're up 3-0 in the Mountain Division Final, so be on the lookout for them. Next time they're back here at Cable Dama Arena, get out there. It is one heck of a time. Gabe, I think that's pretty much all we have today. You have any notes or anything we missed?
The last thing, tomorrow, Patrick Mahomes goes into the Hall of Fame, not the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We know that is going to happen.
He'll get a gold jacket one day.
He will get that. He will get that 5 years from whenever he retires. Whenever that is, we're not in any rush to get to that point. But tomorrow he goes into the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame. And I think that's pretty notable because we all know the history of Texas high school football, Friday Night Lights, all those kinds of things. He goes in tomorrow. He also goes in with Robert Griffin III, so it's a pretty distinguished class. I believe the ceremony's tomorrow evening. It's a private event, so I'm not sure what all we will see or hear from it, but there's a story up on KCTV5.com about it.
Well, Gabe, that brings us one more topic, actually. I have to ask you, Patrick Mahomes, we'll take any chance we can to talk about him. Mm-hmm. Why not? He's our quarterback, one of the best to ever play football.
Yep.
My question for you, as a Kansas City guy, you've seen it all. What is your top Patrick Mahomes memory? It can be from any season, any game, playoff, funny. It could be historic. It could be anything you want.
I think that because I was there for the game, the 4th and 9 against the Ravens, he has publicly said several times it is his favorite throw ever, the connection of him and Tyreek Hill on that play. And I will say that as somebody who grew up rooting for the Chiefs and feeling as if things would inevitably go poorly, that game single-handedly turned the script. I know that later that season there was the D Ford offsides and losing the coin toss in overtime and losing the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. But I really, truly do believe that like that 4th and 9 play back against the wall had to have it to beat the Ravens in that regular season game, even though it was a regular season game. That is like the snapping point of feeling like the Chiefs are inevitable. And yes, there's a little bit of hindsight to it, but really since then it kind of has been. And so being there in person, yes, I've been lucky to be at a good portion of these Patrick Mahomes games and seen him do some crazy things. But that one, because of how close it was to the start and just that being his first season starting, was remarkable and stands out to me.
It's kind of crazy just hearing you talk about that, just like some of these moments, like flashing back on. Like I literally had chills on my spine, like thinking back to some of these moments, just because they mean so much. But I think maybe for me, it wasn't a Super Bowl winning moment, but it was when they were down 24-0 against the Texans, and they just came all the way back. Because at the time I was living in Minnesota, I saw the Chiefs were down 24-0, and I was a sports director at the time, but I had some other stuff to do, and I was like, oh, the game is over. The game is over. And then like I was like walking in the newsroom, and I just like saw like this long pass, and it was just like a moment of like realization. I guess we kind of knew, but it's just like we got the guy, and like they're trying to stop him, and they can't.
Yep.
Like it was just I'm getting chills on my spine right now, just kind of remembering thinking about that. So we will all that football. It's coming up here, training camp, mini camp, OTAs, all that stuff. So how about that, Patrick Mahomes? What is it? The Texas
High School Football Hall of Fame.
So cool stuff there. Gabe, I'm sure has a great web script on that on our website. So that's all we have here on Friday, May the 9th on KC Sports Tonight. We got our great show coming up on both Saturday and Sunday at 10:30 p.m. Myself, Neil, and Marlia have been working on that. So we got some good stuff coming up. But that's it on this Friday. And have a good weekend, guys.